Few chefs have redefined modern cuisine quite like René Redzepi. From a relatively unknown restaurant in Copenhagen to being named the best restaurant in the world multiple times, he didn't just build a restaurant, he built a new way of thinking about food. But from behind the innovation was a system pushed to its limits. This is the story of René Redzepi. René Redzepi was born in 1977 in Copenhagen, Denmark, the same city that he would later put on the culinary map. He grew up with a Danish mother and a Macedonian father. His childhood was split between Denmark and rural Macedonia, which then was still known as Yugoslavia, where food was simple, seasonal, and deeply connected to the land. In Macedonia, meals weren't about luxury, they were about survival, preservation, and tradition. Ingredients were foraged, grown, and farmed, oftentimes preserving for winter out of necessity. Those experiences would later become the foundation for a cuisine that would redefine fine dining. Redzepi would drop out of high school at 15 and enroll in restaurant trade school in Copenhagen. But this early career wasn't marked by passion or immediate success. Rene began his professional career as an apprentice at a French restaurant in Copenhagen named Pierre André, which would eventually go on to earn a Michelin star. Here, Rene was introduced to the discipline, dedication, and detail of fine dining. He would then go on to work at Les Jardins des Sens in Montpellier, France, a three-Michelin star establishment. Before long, he stepped into the arena of cutting-edge cooking, staging at some of the most respected restaurants in the world, including the world-famous El Bulli in Spain with Ferran Adria, where creativity and experimentation pushed the limits of what food could be. And then at the French Laundry in California under chef Thomas Keller, where precision, structure, and consistency defined the kitchen. These two influences, innovation and discipline, would later collide in his own work. Before opening his own restaurant, Redzepi returned to Copenhagen, a city that, at the time, was not exactly a global destination for fine dining. He worked at Kong Hans Keitler, and while it was not El Bulli, it was one of Denmark's most respected fine dining restaurants. Here Rene worked as a sous chef, gaining invaluable experience as a culinary leader. As a sous, he had consistency and reliability, which afforded him the ability to stage in some of the best kitchens in the world. But despite the technical training, Redzepi felt disconnected from the food he was cooking. Fine dining in Europe was still dominated by French luxury, truffles, foie gras, caviar, and he began to question it. He saw potential in something else, in ingredients that were local, overlooked, and uniquely Nordic. In 2003, René Redzepi co-founded Noma in Copenhagen. The concept was radical. No imported luxury ingredients, only what could be found in the Nordic region. That meant for foraging wild herbs, fermenting ingredients in order to have the ability to serve guests throughout a harsh winter, and building a menu around seasonality in its purest form. At first, the world didn't understand, but the culinary world could see the talent that René contained. Noma would quickly start to gain international recognition. In 2005, Noma made its first appearance on the San Pellegrino 50 Best list, but that would be far from Noma's last appearance. In 2010, at the age of just 33 years old, René and his team at Noma were named the best restaurant in the world by San Pellegrino's 50 Best Restaurants list, a title it would earn multiple times. It wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It became a global movement. New Nordic cuisine was it, and René was him. Noma pushed boundaries through not just innovative dishes, he re-engineered how ingredients were sourced, preserved, and transformed, using fermentation, foraging, and microbiology to create entirely new flavor systems, all while creating an immersive dining experience. He continued to reinvent and reinvest, relocating within Copenhagen to a space that allowed Noma to be the purest form of itself. He created a 3-seasonal menu model: seafood, vegetable, and game, oftentimes launching international pop-ups and down seasons in cities like Tokyo, Sydney, and Tulum, bringing its philosophy to a global audience, while also continuing to educate himself and his team by truly trying to understand the food of those regions. Like many great chefs, Redzepi's influence extends far beyond his own kitchen. While René's chef tree could be quite long, some of the most successful and notable chefs to come out of Noma include Matt Orlando, who went on to open a Mas in Copenhagen, a restaurant focused on sustainability and zero-waste cooking; Christian Puglisi, the founder of Relais and Beast in Copenhagen, where he cooked with such a simplistic yet overwhelmingly flavorful approach; Rosario Sanchez, who brought Noma's precision to a completely different format, opening Hija de Sanchez, redefining Mexican food in Europe. Eduardo Garcia, who returned to Mexico to open Maximo Bistro in Mexico City, now one of the most respected restaurants in all of Latin America. And Eric Vildgaard, of Restaurant Jordner, a restaurant that has earned 3 Michelin stars and gained international acclaim. Through these chefs, Redzepi's philosophy and the dedicated leadership from the Noma kitchen team continues to shape kitchens around the world. We also feel it is important to discuss René's impact on the Bocuse d'Or. While Redzepi did not compete, or coach for that matter, in the Bocuse d'Or, his influence elevated Denmark's presence on the global stage. In 2011, Danish chef Rasmus Kofoed won gold at the Bocuse d'Or, becoming the first chef ever to earn bronze, silver, and gold across different years. Kofoed worked at Noma during its early rise, at a time when Redzepi's influence and philosophy were beginning to reshape Nordic cuisine. That victory wasn't just personal. It signaled the arrival of Denmark as a serious force on the global dining scene. Despite the success, the reality of fine dining remained: long hours, extreme pressure, and a system that often relied on unpaid labor. For years, stages, young cooks who work for free, generally to gain experience, helped power Noma's kitchen. What was once seen as a rite of passage began to be questioned. Reports and accounts from former staff began to describe an environment that could be physically, psychologically, and emotionally demanding and abusive. Some described physical intensity in the kitchen, including objects being thrown, aggressive outbursts during service, and moments where pressure escalated into visible confrontation. Others pointed to the psychological toll: a culture of constant scrutiny, fear of failure, and relentless expectations, where mistakes were magnified and perfection was the baseline.
And just fucking let me be finished. I'm gonna go crazy on you, okay? What is it you don't understand? First you finish the fucking dishes. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Except get fucking more hands on here right now and finish your job before you start bullshitting here, okay? I'm gonna explode at you, okay? Stupid idiot, man. Afsted, kom nu, Ulf, ikke?
And for many, the experience became emotionally exhausting, marked by long periods of stress, lack of support, and a feeling of being pushed beyond personal limits, where validation was rare and pressure to perform was constant. What was once accepted as the price of excellence was no longer okay. Redzepi himself acknowledged that parts of the system had gone too far. As the conversation around kitchen culture intensified, the pressure didn't just come from within Noma, it came from the industry at large. For many, the story wasn't just about one restaurant. It was about a system that had been normalized for decades, a system built on hierarchy, intensity, and control. And for critics, that raised a critical question. If chefs like René Redzepi helped define modern cuisine, did they also have the responsibility to redefine the culture behind it? While Redzepi acknowledged the toll and spoke about change, some argued that recognition came too late. After years of pressure that had already shaped the experiences of countless young cooks, because in an industry where many chefs are trained in demanding environments, the expectation isn't just to continue that system, it's to evolve. To create kitchens that maintain excellence without relying on fear, intimidation, or burnout. And with a global platform as influential as Noma, the opportunity wasn't just to change food, but to change the culture of the kitchen itself. That tension between innovation and responsibility became part of René's legacy. But let's be honest. While René certainly continued the culture of abuse in fine dining and hospitality, he didn't invent it. Ask any chef that has spent time in a reputable kitchen. They tell war stories, often as a badge of honor, as if they were able to endure and succeed despite working in an environment that treated them like they were garbage. And it's not only restaurants that have been profiting off fear and intimidation, it's Hollywood too. Movies and TV shows love to show the raw aggression of the kitchen. Gordon Ramsay isn't worth hundreds of millions of dollars because of his restaurants. It's because he's created a persona as a madman chef screaming at cooks and chefs on nearly every one of his TV shows. Even movies like Ratatouille, which is geared towards children, portrays a chef terrorizing his kitchen team. Boiling Point, Burnt, The Menu, The Bear all show chefs in pristine whites yelling and throwing things, treating their staff like they're pawns in their brigade. And it doesn't end with Hollywood. This portrayal extends to literature. Kitchen Confidential, Heat, The Devil in the Kitchen, all of them and so many more paint a picture of intensity and aggression in an industry that is clearly lacking sensibility and fairness. But regardless of the history of this industry, the world is changing for the better. People in power are no longer invincible. Anyone with courage has a voice, and when enough people speak up, change will take place. In this instance, the change will take place at Noma. On March 11th, 2026, after a half-hearted, PR written apology, which was clearly seen for what it is, mere words when all that will suffice is action, René Redzepi announced he would step down immediately from his position at Noma. After 23 years running a kitchen seen as the pinnacle of fine dining, René is now the poster boy for change in an industry that is begging for a revolution. René Redzepi didn't just change food, he changed how chefs think about food. He proved that world-class cuisine didn't need to come from luxury. It could come from identity, place, and creativity. But his story also reflects a larger truth, that the pursuit of perfection in fine dining often comes at a cost, and that even the most innovative systems must evolve. René Redzepi built one of the most influential restaurants in the world and helped redefine modern cuisine. But his legacy is not just about what he created. It's about what the industry chooses to become next. Will chefs finally start treating their cooks like civilized human beings, or will the cycle just keep repeating itself? This is Chef's Legacies. If you enjoyed this video or any of our other videos, please give us a follow and a subscribe for more stories behind the world's most influential chefs. Coming up next on Chef's Legacies is Chef Thomas Keller.